What is up, everybody? It is Tuesday night, time to talk some football. You have to pardon me. I'm trying to log into Facebook so I can share to 18 million sources. Because we haven't figured out how to do that automatically. Anyways, your boy SAJ coming to you loud and proud from Sound Warehouse. I don't think I've ever used that one.
I think you have, but it's been a minute since you have. What is up? BD here. Today I'm gonna come at you from the Rocky J Studios. Uh, Nice little the family kid friendly pool hall that I used to go to off of Nacogdoches Road. Used to go there a lot when I was a kid or uh, young teen because they didn't serve alcohol, so they let kids go in there and play pool. So that's where I discovered my love for playing pool.
Yep. When did you realize that you weren't any good at it?
So when I became an adult and started playing and realized that the more I drank, the better I was. So
Oh, the better you thought you were, the better you actually were.
I mean,
Because I knew pretty much from the
it's
beginning I was horrible.
six in one, half dozen in the other. You know.
Okay. I knew from the beginning I was horrible. It's just the alcohol made it more tolerable.
I
That's all.
figured I figured if I hit the ball hard enough or the cue ball hard enough, something was going to go in one of the holes. So that was always
Yep.
my strategy for playing.
Much like my philosophy on life. Anyways, moving forward. So, got a
Oops.
lot to talk about tonight. And obviously, you can tell that, BD and I are a little bit scratchy because we did go to the Michigan San Antonio game.
Yeah.
And man, I'm telling you, I was very pleasantly surprised. Do we want to get into our Michigan trip before we actually talk about the games? Because
You
I think
know,
it might be beneficial.
we can a little bit. I mean, if you want a more in depth conversation about a trip, you can definitely check out last night's Horns Forward. We talked for probably about 30 minutes about just the trip itself before we even got into the game. But other
Yeah.
than the shady Airbnb that we stayed at that had certain illicit deals going on outside. Um, uh, Really, I mean, I was like you said, I was pleasantly surprised at the downtown area of Detroit. It was my first time going. Um, you you hear things like that how terrible Detroit is. It's murder capital of the world. It's run down. It's nothing but just trash all over the place or run down buildings, abandoned buildings, stuff like that. And we'll get into it a little bit later too, but they did a lot of renovations of the city, especially the downtown part of it for the draft, the NFL draft last year. Um, they a lot of stuff that we had, talking to Uber drivers that were taking us around and stuff, and kind of recommending some areas for us to go. They apparently we didn't go check it out, but it was highly recommended. They added kind of a river walk to the city. So I'd like to check that out. We were a little pressed for time and after the game a little tired, so we didn't go see it. But really, I mean, I really liked downtown. It was cool. I love old architecture. Um, uh,
All the pretty bricks and
all
everything.
the pretty bricks in the buildings and all the limestone and all the colors, all that stuff. Inside joke, if you know, you know.
Yep.
But no, like just it's got a really cool feel to the city, um, and just I love. We walked by. What's their baseball stadium? Is it Comerica Park?
Yeah, Comerica.
So we were walking down the street, going to a pizza joint that's been open since the 1940s. After the game, and you look to the right, and there's Comerica Park. It's there. You're looking into the outfield, like onto the baseball field itself, and it's like, oh crap, it's right there. It's not like what you see a lot of places. It's behind a big old parking lot. Like it's just another building in the city, and they've got parking garages and stuff for everyone to park at. But it's really cool the way all the stadiums are just just there, even Ford Field. Like you go to the Alamo Dome, you got to go in a big old parking lot, and you got to walk all the way around and get to the end. This one, it's there. You find a spot to park, and you walk across the street, and the entrance is there. I really like how they built everything into the city.
Yeah, not gonna lie, I was very impressed by the way they did that, and I thought it was just really sweet and almost kind of a preview of what we can expect, with the downtown renovations going on.
Yep.
And it's really nice knowing that you've got kind of all of your sports parks in one area, and it's just a matter of finding a parking spot and then walking over to whatever venue you're going to.
Yeah.
Oh, it's this guy. Um,
Or I mean, like we did, we Ubered to the corner and got dropped off right there, and it was easy to get in, get out, and like you said, that's kind of what San Antonio is trying to do with the Project Marvel. Build kind of a sports complex for renovations for the dome and new Spurs arena, stuff like that. Maybe even what I think they might throw in a baseball arena for the missions. I don't remember if that was part of it or not, but that kind of just make it a part of downtown as like where the Spurs play right now. Out 10, 15 minutes from downtown on the east side where there's nothing around it. So
well, and here's another thing that I want to make sure that we bring up also, right? So Ford Field, legendary stadium. The Detroit Lions play there. Barry Sanders still to this day posted all over the walls, right? Love that. Even though I'm a Packers fan, can't stand the Lions, but you got to give respect to them, right? Here's the thing that blew me away. That's a 64,000 seat stadium. Now, granted, 63,000 are all the steps going down to the depths of hell to get to your seats. Just because of the way they built their bowl, it's actually like they burrowed out rather than building up from the ground up like we have to do here. They burrowed down into the ground. So, it makes a nice bowl and everything.
yeah,
But they've got a ton of seats going down, and it's like literally 200 steps from the concourse down to the first level. Not bad going down, but coming up, it's crazy. Here's the thing, though, that I want to compare it to. Our Alamo Dome holds over 68,000. Okay. Age wise, they're about the same. If you look at the two, I think, our stadium looks a little bit better. It looks a little bit better maintained, at least on the outside. Now, when you go on the inside, they're comparable, right? Because Detroit spends the money on their infrastructure on the inside of the building. Uh, and there's a lot going on here. Brian, definitely. I think going back to what BD said, I think they're going to be putting all the sports complexes together. So there should be a baseball field in this mix somewhere, if I remember correctly. I don't know if that means they're getting rid of Nelson Wolf or what they're going to do with it, but I hope that that's the case because we really could benefit from having everything downtown like that.
yeah. And I mean Nelson Wolf, I think that's been there longer than the pizza joint we went to. So
Yes. That's Sleepy Brahma right there, folks. If you watch the game, and Hun, I apologize in advance. Not calling you out, but I got asked how unexcited you were about being at that game when was Beckett jumped up into the stands. Somebody caught a view of Sabrina who was on her phone like this, completely unimpressed, and so uh, and that's true.
yeah,
Tim, you do have 6,000 steps.
that's exactly what I said earlier, man. It's ridiculous
At least it's
trying to like walk from the parking lot into the dome. You
mm,
know,
that's right. There's that pedestrian walkway I forgot
yeah.
about to get from the one parking lot to the other to
You
get
gotta
up
go down the stairs and then go over, then go up the
again.
stairs and then go over and
Yep, it's the train tracks, man. It's the worst. But anyways, so Ford Field was impressive in the sense that we're kind of on the same level with them, if not at least a little bit bigger as far as seating wise. Um, it makes you wonder if the infrastructure was there, could we actually support an NFL team? fan wise. But that's for a whole different show. That's just something for you guys to ponder. I don't want to get too far into the weeds with that one. Just something to think about. Okay. Anyways, Detroit was awesome. Obviously, Bulls on tour showed up loud and proud. You could hear us on the national broadcast. We were getting crazy. We were doing our part to support the team. And overall, it was a really good experience. So if you have not been to Detroit, and yeah, Rice was a little bit rough, not gonna lie, but it's great for college. And Sleepy, it's all good. I understand. Um, and yes, the extra steps do help burn off the calories to keep us sexy. Um, yes, and then there's like train tracks you got to avoid. And I think there's something about a troll that wants like treasure before you can cross over his bridge or something, some kind of limerick or something. I don't remember anymore. It's been a while. Um, yeah, a new stadium. Well, it's not going to be new though. We would probably do the same facelift that we're doing, maybe a little bit more, maybe throw in some more luxury boxes on the top because we don't really have a whole lot of luxury boxes. But
Yeah.
anyways,
I mean,
that's going in the
yeah.
weeds. We're going into the weeds. Anyways, it was a great time in Detroit, even with the with the 8 Mile Hotel, right? Plenty of stories. If you want to hear about all that stuff, go watch our show from yesterday, the Horns Forward podcast. Special shout out to our very own 210 Bramasita. She got hit with a last minute cancellation on her Airbnb, had to scramble, looked for certain parameters, found them, got us in, had no idea where she was actually putting us. And I can't tell you how many times she apologized this weekend for the accommodations. And honestly, we were probably safer there than the neighbors that were around us, right? Because you don't see a group like us go into a situation like that. So literally everybody was watching us. They probably thought we were SWAT or something like that. They were watching every move that we made. So if anybody would have come by, we would have definitely had witnesses. So we were fine.
Yeah. No, and
But
I mean, it was, you know what, it was a shady looking area and stuff going on, but if it wasn't for that, the trip wouldn't have been as fun as it was. So, I mean, I there's no reason to apologize at all.
yeah, it was absolutely fun. One other thing, though, I want to make sure that you show the rest of our guests because there's several people here that did not see this from yesterday. Why don't you show off your Detroit souvenir?
My souvenir. Oh, I got a nice little pizza spatula from that the restaurant we went to. What was it called? It was called Buddy's Pizza, right?
I think it was Buddy's Pizza or something like that.
Nice little authentic Detroit deep dish pizza spatula.
That he did not pay for. He absconded 100%.
It's a souvenir. All right. It was a souvenir.
And the best part was seeing how happy you were once you got it through security. That was the
Yes.
best, dude.
Once I got through airport security, you never know with them, man. They might, flag you for anything. Oh, it's got a point. You might be able to stick up a plane with it. No, I'm not.
Yes. No, but you can flip a mean piece of pizza.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so yeah, absolute blast going to Detroit. And even though, it's home of my arch enemy, yeah, see,
Tim,
see,
snitches get stitches.
there you go. Even though it was the home of my enemy, it was an incredible game. So let's look at that real quick. The final stats, which for us, again, it was a loss, so we are 0-3. I mean, let's be real about the situation. The pressure is on. Coaches are definitely feeling the heat. But first and foremost, we had a very short week with the coaches because we had a coaching change on Tuesday, right? That gave, well, it was Monday, I think it was. That gave Party Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to
Well,
reformulate.
no, it was Wednesday that it happened because it was after
Was it
it was
Wednesday?
after our show. So
Okay.
because we didn't talk about it last week, it happened after that.
Okay. So for those that don't know, we lost our OC, don't know all the details, but we know that there was some frustration with AJ wanting to run the defense a certain way and Wade not being on board with it. The defense or the offense, I said defense, I'm sorry. I meant offense. AJ wanted to run the offense a certain way. Wade was not a fan of it and really wasn't giving him the freedom to do that. Obviously, that led to frustrations, and so he decided to take his show on the road. We wish him nothing but the best. There's
Yeah.
no hard feelings or anything like that. I get it when there's differences like that. things just aren't going to work. And we
And,
would
sometimes you need, you need to go find a better situation that's more suited to you. And so I feel like that's probably what AJ wanted to do. And like you said, I mean, nothing but the best for him unless he goes and coaches against us somewhere, but
then
he's a hell of a coach, and his scheme, his system, works a lot of places. It just probably wasn't the right one for the team that we have this year.
right,
So,
because
but we saw once Party obviously take over as the OC. Some issues with Wade's health. He was had an illness for the game, stayed in the locker room. So Party basically here run the offense, and then they have here run the entire team. So brand new offensive coordinator, acting head coach. This man had a lot thrown at him, but we saw a different offense this game, one that we've been talking about wanting to see all season long. Anthony McFarland got the start, was heavily featured. He had 7 carries for 54 yards. They were running him off to the side. Everything that we've been saying we wanted to see. We saw some read options from Mond. He had a couple good runs, and we just saw a different flow, an offense that looks like it was catered for the team that we have. We did see 3 more drops from Jacob Harris, but to his credit, the play after one of his drops, he caught a 30-yard pass. Very nice catch, great catch. So that's kind of the balance you get with Jacob Harris. You see what he's capable of, but man, he's got to hold on to the ball. He's averaging at least 2 drops a game. He's got to get that down. You know what? If he can cut that down to 1, I would feel a whole lot better. But none would be preferred. But I'll take 1 drop. If I have to get one. But yeah, I mean, it looked different and it was effective. Scored a couple touchdowns this game, early, not late garbage touchdowns. Defense still had some issues with the run, had some issues with their version of the read option. They didn't keep their containment, which is something that they're going to have to work on this week, especially with Abrams and Talmu. So, but I liked the way the team looked.
there is one other thing, and I think the players are aware of it now, especially with Party at the helm here. Um, some of the lack of discipline that we've been kind of calling out the past 2 games, there was a little bit of that, and
There's a lot of that. I mean,
there was a lot of it, but the point I'm trying to make is it looks like there were some things that were said at halftime because they came back a lot less emotionally charged. Like they harnessed that more into making better plays rather than getting mad and slamming people in the face, So
Yeah, I don't have a breakdown by half, but we had 11 penalties for the game, and I know of several drives where we were in the red zone. That first drive, we were the 2-yard line or something. Had a chance to go and score a touchdown, and then we got a holding penalty or a false start or something like that pushed us back, that killed our drive. So I know we had a couple of those drives that were like that, and just undisciplined play. And you gotta, especially where this team's at, where season's basically on the line this week. That penalties is the one thing, the mental mistakes, that is the easiest to clean up.
Yep. So on our first possession in the fourth quarter, we did get 2 penalties. One was a false start, and then one was a personal foul on Brad Wing.
Oh yeah, that was on his punt. He took his helmet off in the field of play,
right?
Which is such a stupid penalty,
It is. But um, looking at that fourth quarter, we didn't really have a whole lot of penalties. And so the third quarter, I don't, I see one,
Well, I know the third quarter. I believe it was third quarter was when Jay Will got the. I believe it was where he got the penalty on Perkins the slide.
yeah. So it looks like, no, it wasn't third quarter. The only penalty we got nailed for on third quarter was too many men on the field. So, which again, that's always surprises me because how do you not how do you not keep track, right?
Yeah,
So the first and second quarter, I think, was the bulk of our penalties. Third quarter, we kind of cleaned it up. Fourth quarter, we just had kind of dumb penalties, right? So again, I think there's improvement on the defense, especially considering, I mean, we played a red hot Michigan and we held them to 26 points, right? But first quarter we held them to nothing. Second quarter we held them to 10. Third quarter we held them to 3, right? The third quarter was the only bad quarter where we really had, kind of letting them walk away a little bit.
and there was a stretch that it was second into the third quarter. Um, they went like field goal or touchdown field goal to end the quarter, and then the third quarter, I think they came back and scored a touchdown off the start. Uh, Man, we let them score a lot, like kind of in a bulk, and then we kind of started slowing them down a little bit. But and then yeah, that third quarter, we did have the one drive that they were rolling. Then Jay Will got his interception return for a touchdown, but they were, they were pretty close to scoring on that one. So I do think the defense still has a lot of work to do, um, but.
Yes. Um, so anyways, again, all things considered, a really good showing from a essentially revamped in 3 days San Antonio
Yeah.
Brahmas, right? I do believe that the fire's been lit. I think that we're going to come out this next game against DC and put up one hell of a fight because now we've had a full week of party at the helm, right? Well, when it comes time for game time, that is. Um, and I think we're going to see the San Antonio that we were kind of expecting to see. We're in for a hell of a fight, though. This is not going to be an easy game, and especially with, like you said, with the run game and with Tamu being, as versatile and as mobile as he is, our defense is going to have to step up, and we're going to have to contain. And so we're going to be there. Several of the Bulls on Tour group is going to be there. We're all going to be talking trash and doing our normal thing, and hopefully it brings that hometown feel to the game and our players get excited and get out there and take care of business and we get a win because I mean we need it, right? If we don't get this win, statistically speaking, you know our chances are going to be very, very diminished, almost to nothing, right? Stranger things have happened. This is, the UFL. We've seen a 4-6 team go on to win the championship. So anything can happen here, but that's probably not going to be the case here.
Yeah.
Anyways, so that was that game. Let's kick over to Houston and Memphis. This was uh oh, Mr. Predator, we know where that team is headed. I mean, we're already there, right? You can't really go much lower. So, if we don't win this week, I mean that's
Yeah, I mean, if that team doesn't show up and yeah, we don't turn around. This was a one week fluke. Then really we look like Houston.
oh, very true. Speaking of Houston, let's talk about that Houston game, right? Houston wound up beating Memphis in Memphis, which, by the way, glad to hear that all of our Houston fans made it there and made it back safely. I'm glad you got to meet some of the Memphis folks. There's some folks there that we didn't even get to meet, so I'm a little bit envious, not gonna lie. Like there's, the boat captain, I guess his name is.
Like
There's an Elvis.
Captain Bill or whatever. Yeah, we didn't get to see
Yeah,
the Captain Bill. he had some stuff going on. I know he was at the game. We were supposed to link up with him before, but he wasn't able to. So, but
Yeah.
you know,
But you got to meet the boatsman, and that dude is one hell of a guy, man.
yeah,
Love hanging out with that dude. And I'm bummed that he's not going to be able to make it down to San Antonio when they play. This is also important late breaking news. The Twin Towers are back together, right? I was excited to see that and excited to hear that you guys have reunited and joined forces and are taking the UFL by storm again. Um, and yes, Mr. Predator, yeah, it sucks, but um, Memphis is 0-3. Defense is scary. Um, we'll go back to that comment in a bit. Yes, Boatsman is the guy that's in the full uniform. Looks like he should be playing. Well, until you actually like see him with the helmet off, and then he's kind of like a taller version of us. Um, but uh, yeah, Memphis's defense is not something to necessarily be sleeping on. They have been in every game that they've lost, and if I remember correctly, going back to the schedule, they played DC and only lost by what, 5?
yeah,
Um,
they lost by 5. They played,
lost they lost big to Michigan, but
yeah, yeah, they
so
played, yeah, they lost by 14 to Michigan. They lost by 5 to DC, and then to Houston by just a few points this week, 1 point this week. So,
yeah. So Tim, no, it's a friend of the boatsman that made my helmet. This one right back here. Well, actually, all 3 of these, right? So I'm sure you guys saw the mini helmets, right? Texans talking football, and then the podcast one, and then my knockoff Brahmas helmet. Um, there's a gentleman that makes these. It's the End Zone helmet painting. If you guys are looking to get some duplicates like these made, look them up on Facebook. Shameless plug. I don't care. I don't get anything for it, but because he did such a great job, I want to make sure that I'm letting you guys know about it. And the duplicates are actually pretty damn close.
yep.
Um, so check them out. Totally worth the price. The minis are not too terribly expensive. The uh the replica was not cheap, I'm not gonna lie. Right. Um, so lots of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for lunch. You do what you gotta do, man. Make things happen. Anyways, so yeah, Memphis's defense is pretty pretty stout. It's something that we need to watch out for. Um, I think that's gonna help them stay in a lot of games. But it didn't exactly help them on what was that, Saturday when they played. Looking at the stats, I'm looking at the wrong page, of course. Go figure.
And we were watching this game while we were flying in. So we were all on the plane, had it going.
Yeah, you guys would have been laughing yourself silly seeing, all of us Brahmas fans, because we basically just took up 2 rows. Well, I think on the way there, we took up 2 rows on one side, and literally everybody's got their phone out, and we're all watching the game, right? And we're all commenting back and forth.
Yeah.
Um, uh, the guy that you're looking for is Saul Rock Cardenas. He's the one who makes the helmets, and actually, he's in your neck of the woods, so you could get one made and go pick it up directly yourself, and there wouldn't be any shipping. Anyways, um, all that is done. Henderson had a pretty good go at things, right? 10 of 11, 80 yards, had really high pass rating because of the numbers. Brown 8 of 15, only 40 yards, right? So you're looking at a whole 120 yards total of passing offense and 118 on the ground. Um, Not exactly, a whole bunch of statistical yardage there.
And I think if they had once again started Brown, brought Henderson in afterwards, and I thought I read somewhere, Houston fans, correct me if I'm wrong, that your coach finally said that Henderson's going to be starting the game next week, which every game that has been it, the 3 games they've played, they've started Brown, brought Henderson in, and Henderson has looked way better than Brown. So why this wasn't done after week 1, I have no idea. But it seems like Coach CJ is finally making the right call.
Yeah. So that's good news for Houston because this could be the turn that you guys need to really start, moving forward with that offense. And it's not that, I mean, you guys have some great players there, right? So unfortunately, it does look like a lot of it kind of falls back to some of the creative coaching that your head coach, kind of does. Maybe get him the, head coaching for dummies series. I don't know. Worked in Waterboy. Maybe it could work here. Um, but what's surprising though is that if you look at Memphis's stats, right, 189 yards in the air, 71 on the ground. Let me look at see if I can find time of possession. Um, Time of possession, Memphis had the ball for like basically 4 minutes less and was still kind of hanging in there. But there's some fumbles, right? And they lost one of them, which fumbles are never good. Uh, there were no sacks. Houston got sacked one time. Let me see penalties if it shows it here. It does not show it on this stat sheet
Houston
here.
had 6 penalties. Memphis
Oh,
had
yeah,
4. At least the UFL page, they don't show the penalty yardage, but
right. So it looks like it really was just kind of a back and forth slugfest with defense. I mean, that's essentially what I saw until Memphis had that really good second quarter, but then Houston came back and answered in the third, right? Kind of blanking them out with 12 points. So overall, I mean, it wasn't the highest scoring game. If you were a defense minded person, you absolutely loved this game. But it was nice to see that Houston got the win. They stayed in the fight till the very end and, managed to get the W, their first one for the season. So congrats to Houston. I know you guys needed it. We need one just as badly, right? We can relate in that shared pain right now. Although at least you guys can enjoy the fact that, you've got one win right now. And we still can't even say that. But again, pretty good game defensively overall. It was fun to watch if you're a defensive minded person. Um, we need to talk about this other game that happened in North Texas, South Oklahoma. Um, and actually, it happened
do we
over
want
in
to talk about that
Birmingham.
one first, or do we want to talk about St. Louis, DC first, and then
Well,
end on the?
I want to save that juicy morsel for last, just because it brings me so much pleasure, right? Um, Overall, um, Arlington, and I mean, looking at these stats, um, it it's a very upside down game. The score does not reveal how much was going on in this game. Arlington had 256 yards, 182 in the air. Birmingham had 308 yards, 255 in the air. So obviously more of an air raid attack this game because the defenses are pretty stingy with the rushing yardage. Um, but again, the score was only 9-10, you know. So you talk about defense. I mean, that's all this game really was, except for that fourth quarter. I believe it was the fourth quarter touchdown that put Birmingham in the
Yeah, the
lead.
final touchdown
Yeah,
with 20
and then
seconds left in the game.
right, and then there was the call, with the was it the offside?
You're talking about the fourth down. So that's I think the game, the stats, whatever. Nobody cares about that. Everybody wants to talk about the fourth down call. Uh, Obviously the people who saw it. Um, uh, yeah, Tim. It was so Birmingham had fourth down, 4th and 6, I believe. Uh, obviously went for it because it was with it a couple minutes left in the game. They had to. Didn't get it. There was an interception by Arlington. Now the question is, what happened before the play started? There was an obvious false start. Even the Arlington players thought there was a false start. The front four stopped, didn't even rush when the ball was snapped. Just they were waiting for a flag. One didn't happen, so they continued on with the play. It was just a real hectic play. Um,
Mhm.
the Holtz Birmingham coach was gonna throw a challenge flag, a super challenge for a false start, but part of the new expanded replay reviews that the UFL has this year, any kind of obvious calls that are missed, they're going to take a look at, and that's what they did. So they reviewed it, determined that yes, it was a false start, that the play was dead. Birmingham then got to redo it for instead of 4th and 6, mark off the 5 yards, 4th and 11, got the first down, went on to score to win the game. I think like what Tim was saying, right here, you should be able to review. Well, that takes away from the purpose of the super challenge. At the end of the day, what we want is the refs to get the calls right. That's the whole point of the challenge. A false start is a pre-snap dead ball foul. In a false start, nothing after the false start happens. It doesn't exist. You get forced mind wiped. This is not the play you're looking for, kind of deal. And it's just all pre-snap penalties are like that. You get 12-minute formation. It's a pre-snap penalty. You don't get to run the play. Play's over. 12-minute on offense. Play's over. All that stuff. Delay of game. That's a pre-snap penalty. Play's over. So you can't go back and say, well, because it's a false start, because of this, you get to decline it. No, a false start is a pre-snap penalty. Nothing that happens after the fact matters.
Right.
Like like the other, like neutral zone infraction, all that stuff. And that's true. Yeah, Tim, they do just like the NFL has no challenges within 2 minutes of the first and second halves. That's kind of one of the things that the league has looked at. Any major missed call, they will look at within 5 minutes. They're not going to do that across the entire game because that's kind of the point of the super challenge. But within 5 minutes, they'll take a look at it. If it's an obvious call, they're not going to like ticky tack little holes that the super challenge might be used for. It's just for clear and obvious calls they're going to stop and take a look at it for.
Right. And in this case, that happened. It was 2:19 left on the clock. So we were within the 5-minute window. So does it suck? Is it horrible to lose a game that way? Yes. But that interception doesn't count because it was a dead ball foul. Right. So that play never should have happened in the first place. So if the play doesn't happen, then the interception doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And then you don't get the turnover.
I know Arlington fans are pissed. I know most UFL fans are pissed because it's Birmingham and everybody hates Birmingham. I hate Birmingham too. But like I said before, at the end of the day, the point is to get the calls right. This was the correct call. It was a false start. Play should have been blown dead. Back them up 5, 4th and 11. Try again to stop them. And like you said, Tim, Arlington had a second chance to stop them on that 4th and 11. A harder chance to stop them. They could have done that. Everything was moot if they did. So, I understand the frustration, but I think it's only frustration because people hate Birmingham so much. If it was any other team that did it, any other team that it happened to, nobody would care.
Yep. So let's talk about that DC St. Louis game. So we actually watched that game while we were at the pizza place that BD got his souvenir or his
spatula.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank there. I'll be okay. And very interesting game. DC very much was in control of that game the entire time. There was not a single moment where St. Louis was ever in the lead. They came close.
I think they kind of tightened it up in the second, in the second quarter. It was, they got within, I think they got within like one score on it.
Yep. And Ed is not wrong here. It's important to notice this. Manny 2024 is back. Okay. Um, Manny Wilkins did not have a great game. 147 yards, 3 interceptions, and only 1 touchdown. So um, there's a lot to be said about DC's defense, but it didn't help that they were going up against somebody that they could rattle, you know. And so yeah, it was. Yeah, I'm not going to break it down too terribly much. I mean, everybody saw the game, everybody knows what happened. But DC was in the driver's seat, and they are the team to beat this year. And so that sucks for us because we got to face them next week. You know, it's going to be rough. But let's look ahead to week 4, right? We've got Memphis going into Michigan, and our picks are over on the Horns Forward podcast. You can see who all we're picking and everything. St. Louis is going up against Arlington in Arlington. I think that's going to be a very tough game for them. I don't see them getting a win there either. I think Manny's going to get rattled by that Arlington defense and cough up a couple more INTs, and it's going to be a painful experience. But St. Louis fans, if you're going to travel to Arlington, enjoy the city of Arlington. There's lots of other things going on over there as well. Just around the corner from Cockjaw is where the Rangers play. I believe there's an ice hockey team in there that's still playing at some point in time. You can go visit Jerry World and get yourself some souvenirs. Make sure you pay for them though, because the Jerry World police will probably arrest you. Um, and you can get some really bad tacos in Arlington also. But our friends at the tailgate will make sure to take care of you and give you really good food. So go there. Don't go get
That's where you get the good tacos in Arlington. You don't get good tacos at the restaurant. You got to go to the tailgate for those.
Yes, and 100% true statement. My brother from another mother. This is my Arlington twin. A little bit taller. Okay, a lot taller. A little bit skinnier. Okay, a lot skinnier. But otherwise, he is my twin. Um, and right here, they do have a jail in Jerry World, and BD may have seen it. Okay, Lot E is the place to be. Make sure you go there. And Spurgeon, you're not wrong. They actually if I remember correctly, I was on your show and you had said that Manny was the MVP. So, but I think you were doing that to harass another fan. So, in all fairness, we're not going to hold you to that one. Just because I think the ridiculousness of the statement. That's why you had to make a big deal about it. So, anyways, Arlington is not necessarily going to have a walk in the park either, right? There are some key elements to St. Louis that can make them dangerous. So Arlington is going to have to play all sides of the ball, not just offense. They're going to have to make sure that they've got a shutdown defense, putting pressure on Manny so he does throw up those balls that the defense can then pick off, right? Houston is going to have their hands full with Birmingham also, because obviously Birmingham is trying to climb back to the top, and they're doing it like 1 or 2 points at a time. Right now they're at 2-1. They've got a lot to prove because they're the reigning champions and everybody's gunning for them and everybody's against them. Houston's coming off of a win, and it looks like things are starting to finally fall in place for Houston. Are they going to have enough juice to make it? That's going to be an interesting game to watch. And I have an idea of how it's going to go, but I'm hopeful that I'm wrong on that one. I hope this is one of those weeks where I hope my pick is wrong. And then, of course, we're going up against a red hot DC, and with a full week of coaching and practicing and everything under party, do we have the juice to turn it on and make a run here? Because if we're going to be relevant, we have to pretty much win out. Maybe if we lose a USFL conference game, not going to be as big of a deal, but we have to win out all of our XFL conference games from here on out, and that's a tough road to climb.
Definitely.
So obviously you're going to want to keep your eyes on the UFL this weekend. This is absolutely brutal. John, you're very mean, right? And now I want you to pay me back for that margarita I bought you, because you're mean. So when we went to St. Louis, we're hanging out.
Let's see him come back in here next week when he's wrong.
That would be nice.
Let's see if he can. Let's see if he'll show up.
That'll be nice. And we're going to be Horse on Monday when we do Horns Forward next week, and then probably on Texans Talking on Tuesday.
Yeah.
But again,
yeah, I'm sure my voice is going to be, get 100% by Thursday, Friday. and then I'm going to go out there and ruin it again on
Yep.
Sunday, just like how it should be in
Yep.
football season.
That's the life of the XFL fan, or the UFL fan, I should say. Anyways, again, a lot of good games to talk about this weekend. So make sure that you're watching. If you are unable to make it to any of the games, make sure that you're going to, if you're at home, turn the game on, right? Because again, this league kind of supports itself through viewership. And there was a discussion on one of the fan pages about how much each person is made, basically bringing in revenue, and pardon me, how much it actually means to the league. And it's basically about 20 people watching the game to equal one person at the game, right? Which is important, but you're going to get a hell of a lot more people at home watching the game than you are in a game. You're not going to get 600,000.
Yeah,
And if you notice the numbers, minus that one abysmal showing this weekend, numbers are on the rise. Right?
they were, and I mean, it would really, even the Sunday games, um, the Birmingham DC, oh, I'm sorry, the DC St. Louis game, it was what, about 900,000, a little
Mhm.
over. I think it peaked at 1.4 million watching it. The San Antonio Michigan game had probably what, 800,000
That's
people watching
600,
it,
800. I can't remember.
and yeah, 700, 800, something like that. Even the Friday night game, I think, was the highest watched Friday night game as well, and that had probably 700,000 people watching it. I said every game except for Houston, Memphis was up, and we kind of talked about that last week. What are the numbers going to look like now that the Final Four was over? Obviously, you had the Masters going on. You had, it's the spring. You're always going to have something in competition. So you can't just be like, oh well, viewership sucked because basket weaving was on. There's always going to be competition, but with the major part of the way, the Final Four numbers looked good. They're trending up, and you had on Sunday two really good games. And so that games like that is kind of what we need to see more for the league, for more people to start watching it. I mean, the games like Saturday or like Sunday, the San Antonio, Michigan and DC St. Louis, those are going to get a lot more people watching them than the what was it, 11 and 9 or whatever the Birmingham Arlington score, and then the Houston Memphis score.
Mhm.
People like to see offense, so I think more games that hit the over on them, the lot more competitive, higher scoring in the 20s and stuff. I think the more we get of that, the more people are going to start watching this
Yep.
league.
So to uh to highlight Spurgeon's comments real quick, all Fox cares about is viewership and it's a TV product to them. Well, yeah, to a certain extent, you're right. If you do the math, 600,000 people at 27 cents, which I know they're making more than that per person, but that's just kind of what the average speculation was. That's God, what was it? 100 and no, it was more than that. I'll tell you right now. 600,000 times 0.27. It's $162,000 of passive income for each game. Now, that's just taking the average of 600,000 and the 27 cents. I'm pretty sure they're probably making more than that in the ad revenue. So let's just say we make $1 per person. That's $600,000 for something they didn't even really have to do. Okay. Um, and that's just the log track numbers. I'm sure that there's streaming services out there that aren't being accounted for in this, that are somehow generating revenue as well. Uh, it's all
And
passive
I actually did see something because we talked about that last week
income.
too, streaming numbers being affected. So I think it was Mike Mitchell. He had posted a thing that he kind of looked into it or whatever. The Nelson ratings, they do take into account Hulu and YouTube TV streaming ratings. They don't take into account like the ESPN Plus streaming stuff like that. Um, so some streaming is counted, some
Right.
is
So there's
not.
probably more eyes on this than what we're actually realizing. Right. And there's probably more revenue being generated than what we actually know is going on. So again, Butts and seats are important. You could get, an average of $50 a ticket, 200,000 or 20,000 people showing up to the game. You could generate up to $1 million in revenue. Um, but there are other things to take into account with that, like rent and the staff and all these other things. Whereas with the televised games, you've got a staff of about 20 or so that can kind of cover it, you know? So your expenses are a lot less. So I don't think Fox cares just about the TV ratings, but it's free money for them, essentially, right? And Tim, 100%, you have a point, right? Disney, ESPN, right?
Yeah.
So, anyways, make sure you're watching the game. That's the whole point of it. If you can't make it to the game, watch it on TV. Head to your local sports bar. Pretty much every fan base has, you know, an affiliation with some bar somewhere that you can watch the game. If they don't, do like what we did. We went to the pizza place. We made sure that they had the game on. They had the game on 4 different TVs, in addition to some other stuff that was going on, like bowling or I don't know, whatever. But they had the game on. And so we were watching, right? If we wouldn't have been watching there, we would have been watching it on YouTube TV. And just like we did for the games coming up, we watched everything on our phones, right? Because those numbers count for something. And so make sure that you're watching it, help out, do your part, you know, help keep that revenue coming in because that's what feeds the beast, right? That's what keeps spring football around for us. And I know spring football isn't necessarily for everybody, but obviously, if you're watching a show like this, spring football is for you. So, do your part. Um, okay, that's enough of UFL for now. We've got a couple more things that we definitely want to touch on before we go too far. Uh, IFL, San Antonio Gunslingers had a big weekend this weekend. Unfortunately, they did not get the win, but it was a pretty close game against the Arizona Rattlers, and we knew that that was going to be tough.
Defending champion Arizona
Yeah.
Rattlers.
Um, San Antonio actually took the lead pretty quickly, and had 14 points on the board before Arizona even had a chance to respond. But then Arizona came back and then really kind of started piling on the points and forced San Antonio to be in a catch up situation. They did a pretty good job doing that, but they just didn't have enough gas in the tank to finish out the game and wound up falling short 63 to 55 against the defending champions. Now, this is a team that has had some issues. They started out 1-1, had the big coaching change. Things weren't looking so great for them. And then they had a horrible year. Let's just be honest. They had a horrible year last year, their first year in the IFL. But it looks like they finally managed to turn it around. And, maybe they're starting to make, the right moves to move forward. Just the fact that they put up 55 on the board is impressive enough, right?
Yeah.
If you look at some of the other games, you've got the typical things that we've kind of been concerned about for a while. Uh, Tulsa at Green Bay, Green Bay pulled that off 74 to 68. Those are the scores that we're used to seeing. Uh,
Yep.
San Diego,
You had the Fishers in Massachusetts. That was a 47, almost 50 points. And then you had the other games that like Jacksonville and Tucson that was 28 to 21. And nobody watches an arena game or indoor game to see 28 points put on the
yeah,
board to
that,
win.
that's okay.
We want to see the 50, 60
Mhm.
point
Right.
games.
Now, the Northern Arizona fans would have loved to have seen that game to be a little bit closer. They got beat 50 to 28, right? So getting a little bit closer in that
Yeah.
direction. But for the most part, we still got some really low scoring games. And it's just surprising to see that in arena ball because normally most matchups are going to be a one on one matchup and it's the receiver, fighting to win that ball against the defender. Which in the past, most of the times they've won that. So I don't know if there's been like this huge improvement in the DB pool, if you will, but things just aren't hitting high scores like they used to. So it's just interesting to keep an eye on. This next weekend, San Antonio is going to be going up against the Tulsa Oilers in Tulsa again. Hopefully, they have a little bit better showing this week than they did. Was it week one where they lost by 8 points in San Antonio? Hopefully, this will be a comeback game for them, and we can see some bigger scores. Over to the NAL, it looks like the Beaumont Renegades had their hands full against the Omaha Beef. Omaha Beef, if you remember, this is the team that we talked about, where they made a coaching change, like basically, not even, I don't want to say during a game, but it feels like they knew something was coming. They terminated their head coach right after the game. The head coach that was with the Carolina Cobras, I believe it was, quit right after their game, and they had won. In fact, he quit 2 days later. Head coach Omaha Beef, and so then this was his first game as the head coach with the team. Beaumont gave them a uh, oh my God, Tim, that's brutal. How would you know? You've been spending a lot of time at those Love's truck stops again. I warned you about that. Anyways, Beaumont Renegades wound up getting a win. And so, we were talking about it that, a couple of gaps in their game schedule, but it looks like they're going to be playing again on the 18th against Columbus Lions. That was a huge team last year in the NAL. Oh, actually, no, it was in the other league, the one that Corpus came from.
The AI
Yes.
AIF.
So that should be a huge test for Beaumont to see where they're at. Um, so we'll
Yeah.
be kind of keeping an eye out for that. I'd love to say, a little bit more about these games, but IFL started their own broadcast. So did NAL. NAL has locked down any kind of leaks now for any of the games that were, even the highlights that were going out on YouTube. They've shut all of that down. So we're cheap. We're not going to be paying for the services. So we got to look at the box scores, and then maybe if we can catch, something that kind of falls under the radar.
I'm not paying for IFL just on principle.
Truth, truth. I
So
don't, I don't disagree with you. Um, Over to our friends at AF1, who still seem to be a league, at least this week, anyways. Looks like Corpus Christi definitely showed up, and Washington probably didn't even leave the state. Washington Wolfpack wound up getting beat 61-21. And the surprising thing is that Washington started out really, really strong first quarter. They put up 15 on the board. Corpus only answered with 6 points. And then Washington just laid down like the beaten puppies they were. Uh, I mean, what can you say? Corpus went crazy. 21 in the second quarter, 27
yeah.
in the fourth quarter. Uh, Total last three quarters, Washington was only able to put up 6 points, and that's it. So they got completely dominated this game. Um, I'd tell you what the stats were, but AIF is much like what the NAL was last year with their website. They don't update any stats. So
Oh,
nothing.
it's the exact same style of website. I think the same person designed it. It's kind of, I don't know. It's
It's a
dumb.
little
I
jank.
mean,
Not
but
gonna lie.
yeah.
Okay, but obviously they're going to be playing again in next week. So we'll be trying to keep an eye on that one and give you updates as we can. Maybe try and see if we can find a leak somehow to actually watch some live video.
I mean, Corpus is looking good. They're 3-0. Them and Albany are the only two undefeated teams so far. Albany's 4-0.
Yep.
And they've got one of the higher scoring defense or teams that looks like, kind of looking at the breakdown of based on games played and stuff, that they've got some scoring more than the other team, so they're looking good. Their first year, I know it was kind of not sure what was going to happen with Corpus when they went from the AIF, they went to NAL, dropped out of AIL, not sure. Oh, we're doing the AF1,
And
um,
then
and then there were the reports that weren't sure what was going to happen.
teams are dropping
The
out.
reports that yeah, they might be dropping out, players not getting paid, stuff like that. Well, they're still here and they're undefeated,
Yep,
so rooting for them for the rest of the season.
definitely. Speaking of teams dropping out, we obviously saw the latest news that there are teams that dropped out from the IFA. So we're now down to four teams. That's Dallas, Tampa, San Antonio, and Ohio Valley. They're looking to expand to Little Rock in 2026. I don't know. But oh, and then there's the team in Mexico. Maybe. I'm gonna have to look into that because I thought that was one of the teams that bailed out also. Uh,
Yeah, who knows what the hell's going on? I mean, this was a league we've talked about it a lot. They've been trying to get it together for 5-6 years now. This was supposed to be the year they were going to do it, and I think we've said it. We've said it a bunch. When you start seeing issues with teams dropping out and all saying the same thing, where there's smoke, there's fire. And me personally, I don't think this league's going to see the light of day. Um, there's some reports that maybe the teams are going to kind of break off into a separate league. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? I don't think this league is going to happen.
and,
Just
and
personally.
I will say,
So.
I think that the teams that are talking about breaking off are, if they stick with the name that they're talking about running with, that Continental Football League, they're going to pretty much be doomed from the start because there's going to be, copyright infringements with the whole CFL thing. And then they're going to have to come up with a whole other name. It's going to be bad, right? So if you like drama, keep your eyes on the IFA and this potential CFL league that's going to start. There's going to be plenty of drama there, right? We already know that
Maybe they'll change it. Maybe they'll change their thing to the CNFL or something like that,
or drama football.
They'll.
Who knows? But anyways, there's craziness going on over there. So if that's the kind of thing that you're looking for, there you go. One other thing I wanted to talk about though, right? Because we're right on the cusp with the NFL draft, and we're talking about craziness, right? 2024 NFL draft was held in Detroit, Michigan. We talked about that earlier in the show. We talked to a Uber driver who took us down to the game and was talking to us about his experience with that. And he had said he had never seen so many people in the downtown area in his life. Now, we looked up the numbers. Detroit has a population of about 618,000. Throw on top of that the attendance of over 700,000 people there for that weekend for the NFL draft. So that's in essence what 1.1
1.3, 1.4
right?
million
In a town
is what who
right
was
that
there.
was set up for about 700,000, right? Because that's kind of what it is. The Uber driver said that he couldn't get within a mile of downtown because all the streets were closed off because there were so many people out walking the streets. He literally said a sea of people, right? That's important. The reason why I bring that up is because this year it's going to be held in Green Bay. Now, we looked up the numbers, and the population of Green Bay is about 150,000 people, right? Love my Wisconsin, but I've got to share this with you, okay? Detroit has, neighborhoods and stuff around that can kind of help support things. If you look at the bottom of the mid, right here is Green Bay. Anything north of this is going to be less than 10,000 people. I know for a fact Marinette has less than 10,000 people. I've been there. Any of these are going to be too far to go to. Appleton is going to be your closest city, and Appleton only holds about 50,000 people. Sheboygan is about a 40,000 person town. The next closest is going to be Milwaukee, and that's going to be like driving from San Antonio, up to probably like Waco, maybe even Dallas. I mean, this is a 4-hour drive. Are people going to drive that? Well, they're going to have to. If we get numbers like what we had last year, man, Green Bay is going to see a population explosion like they've never seen before in their life. And while that's going to be great for the city and Green Bay and the state of Wisconsin, I see disaster written all over this, man. That's just too many damn people in a town that's 150,000. Point Place, uh, I listen to that 70s show. I know where you're going with that. Um, and I honestly don't know. I think that was a made up.
So Milwaukee to Green Bay is an hour and 45 minute
No,
drive.
it's not. Liar.
So,
okay.
You tell Google Maps that they're lying.
They're lying. So maybe it's a little bit closer. But really, outside of Milwaukee,
it's 118 miles. So you and me drive, it's like an hour away.
but people are going to have to be staying as far away as, potentially Madison, right? Which is probably about another hour. Um, it's it's going to be interesting to see what the city of Green Bay does to handle this, right? And I'm sure that they're probably bringing in, police forces from all over the state just to be able to help handle this thing because, Joe and Chuck on the day shift aren't going to be able to handle 800,000 people. It's just not going to happen, right? Um, but I'm hopeful that this is a positive experience for everybody. I myself, right? I'm a homer when it comes to Wisconsin. I love the state of Wisconsin. It's not Texas, but I mean it's pretty cool. There's a lot of natural stuff to do there, hiking, camping, fishing, hunting, all kinds of great stuff to do. Outside of that, there's not really much of a nightlife. There's not really, I mean, there will be that weekend. Um,
I'm interested in seeing what, like, kind of after the fact, the stories and kind of the aftermath of. I mean, let's say 500,000 people show up there. 3-4 times what the population is. Just, I mean, we're talking. Can the sewer system support that? Can the everything? I want to see what happens. I like a little bit of chaos, so I'm here
Well,
for
you're
that.
definitely going to get it this weekend. So, anyways, lots of fun stuff that's going to be happening up here in the near future, right? We've got some great games this weekend in the UFL. We're traveling to DC to go visit our friends over there, Captain Obvious, the district defender, the folks. Hopefully, we can at least talk to the folks in the beer snake. I don't know if we're going to get in, but we'll see. We'll let you know if we do. Um, just going and supporting our team and going and hanging out in DC, minus a couple of sketchy areas. It's not a bad place to be. Um,
Hey, we're gonna go hang out in those sketchy areas, man. We're hard now after our trip in Detroit.
we're
So
starting to get that point, right? We're starting to get some street cred, right? Let's just not let it go to our heads and then wind up like trying to stay in Compton or something like that. Um, and then that whole disaster. Anyways, there's also some great games this weekend on, in indoor football. Obviously, Beaumont's got a big one that they're going to be playing. San Antonio's got a pretty important one that they're going to be playing in. Corpus Christi is going to mug whoever they play, I'm sure. But it's still good stuff if you're into arena football. And P.S. Bobby Otten, I want to give a shout out to Bobby because he shared some information with me uh, the other day, and I honestly cannot remember what it was, but I want to make sure that I give him credit for sending information over to us because, again, he's our guy when it comes to arena football, and he's always, taking the time to send us information. I know he helps out Mike G in the AFN a lot, um, so we're definitely appreciative of his friendship. Uh, oh well, I'll think of what it was, Bobby. Whatever it was, thank you for sharing. Once I get my mind right, I'll come around. Um,
yeah, that'll
that
happen.
probably won't happen ever. But in the meantime, make sure you're tuning in and watching. There's lots of great stuff going on. A couple of weeks we get to see the madness that is the NFL draft in tiny little Green Bay, Wisconsin. And yeah, man, it's good stuff. So um, I think that's about all I've got today. B, you got anything else you wanna wrap up with?
No, that's pretty much it. Um, no, yeah, we're looking forward to this weekend. Look forward to traveling to DC. My first time up there, so
It'll be a good time, I promise you. So with that being the case, we'll probably check in, maybe go live a couple of times because we want to, show off our, DC friends to you guys. We definitely want to check in from Walter Sports Bar. That's their kind of version of tailgating. It's an incredible place. Uh, Depending on how the game goes, we may, post game at another place that they took us to the last time we were there, and that was an awesome place as well. Um, but again, overall, it's going to be a fun weekend for everybody. So make sure you tune those TVs on, watch the games, support the league, right? That's about it. Brian, you got anything?
suck at DC.
Suck at DC, suck at St. Louis, suck again.